So this is about automation. I had thought earlier, figured I would talk about it, see where it goes. I think I've thought about this quite a bit. As I was trying to figure out what the meaning of life was, the topic of what if you couldn't work comes to mind. So what if we did a great job with automation and every job that could be automated was automated? What would we do? A lot of people, when they talk about this subject, they worry that a lot of people's meaning is actually derived from the work they do. And that is the case. In fact, it could be most people derive their meaning from being productive and being useful and thus working. And that is not the meaning of life. But it is a good, it's not a bad way to go about it. Like if you don't give it enough thought, or if you don't give it a lot of thought, that's not a bad way to go about it. But if we were to automate things, people wouldn't have that option, and you'd have, like I saw some statistics. Well, you can't say that word on YouTube, but let's say there were a lot of overdoses during the COVID pandemic, and I believe they increased each year or each month or something. And those are people checking out, and likely because they lost a lot of the meaning in their life, some of that being from their work because a lot of people couldn't work, and some of that being from a lack of social interaction, because you can't when you're locked down, you don't have as much social interaction. Anyway, so what happens if we successfully automate everything? I think that people will still need to find meaning that they no longer have from their work. And it's an obvious answer. See, the way you can figure things like this out or potentially figure them out, like who knows, I can't predict the future. But my suspicion is that people are going to revert to more natural behaviors, because it's not really natural to wake up super early and go work in a cubicle for 8 hours of your day. Like you're supposed to be outside and with people that you love, or people that you enjoy. And I think that there are things that, number one, you can't automate, and there are also things which interestingly overlap with that are where you might derive your meaning. And that's a very interesting thing. Like, what if the project we as humanity are working on is full automation of basic necessities, so that people can focus on what really matters? Oh boy, come on, buddy. Anyway, so if we can focus on what really matters, these are things you can't actually automate. So childcare, taking care of like babies, taking care of elementary school kids, and then mentoring kids as they enter adolescence and then into adulthood, and then as you get out of adolescence around 25 or so, then you're going to derive meaning from social engagements, from camaraderie, from connecting with people and engaging in friendly competition with one another, playing games. And then as you get a bit older, your meaning might be letting someone else take care of you, with grace. And you can't really automate that type of stuff. I mean, you might be able to automate some elder care that is like basic and mechanical, but the emotional presence that comes from someone who actually cares about you and is devoting portions of their limited lifespan to you that's very meaningful. You get a lot of meaning out of that. And so if we are potentially walking towards a time where there are automated jobs everywhere, the beauty in that may be that we transition our system of employment, let's say, towards taking care of people, depending on what their needs are. And that's the type of job you would wake up early for, and it wouldn't be like slaving away in a cubicle. It would be, I think, what genuine humanity is supposed to look like. So if we are producing the kingdom of heaven here on earth, then that may be what it is. It may be this chimera of technology, which technology alone could end civilization. But if you have technology throttled and harnessed towards this end goal of, let's say, full automation coupled with a transition to taking care of people, then I think this is actually in, I think it's either Paradise Lost or, I can't remember what the other one was, Dante's Inferno. And they talk about pandemonium, and pandemonium is like a machine, a giant machine. And so if we harness technology inappropriately, you end up with pandemonium, which is like a hellish machine of humanity. But if you harness it properly, in essence, from the story, the way you would model that in the story is it would be taking Lucifer, who would be like the master of machine and intellect, and placing him back into God's pantheon of angels, having him, reverse the fall, basically. And then you would have what he's good at, which is technology and intellect, but harnessed and throttled in harmony with the vision of the kingdom of God. And I don't know, I'm sure someone has written something like that. I'm sure there's a story where Lucifer gets placed back into the pantheon of angels and once again becomes God's highest angel. And we create, the kingdom of heaven on earth. But, I think full automation is, while it will be rough in the short run, if not done appropriately, like if you just take people's jobs and leave them to wallow, we're headed towards pandemonium. But if you take people's jobs, but at the same time orient them in such a way that they can derive meaning from taking care of people in some way, then I think you're doing it right. And hopefully that's the direction we go. If we don't lean too far into the intellect and into technology, into the Luciferian, into the anti-Christian, then we can do that. As Jonathan Pajot puts it, we are in the Christian story. We're in the midst of it, meaning it could go either way. It could go south, or it could go the way of the prediction of how the pattern unfolds, where there's a sort of second coming and a rebirth of the spirit, which would be nice. Now, that pattern may happen for us, or it may happen in a future time, but that is a pattern, and we are in the midst of human patterns, because these patterns that you see in books or in stories or in prophecies, they occur. They're just recurring patterns in reality, and we may act out that pattern, or we may act out the pandemonium pattern. That is part of our story. But automation isn't necessarily a bad thing, and I think that we'll derive meaning from taking care of people. You'll have to shift jobs towards things like that, because you can't really automate taking care of infants and toddlers and children